Hey, it is Thursday, January 5th. We got a special guest host, Todd Caputo, in the house. We're going to review CES announcements they made yesterday. Also, talk about Amazon laying people off and taking a loan all at the same time. So we'll get to that story, the Amazon story, at the end. But Mr. Todd Caputo, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate it.
I should have worn my black hat, black T-shirt, grown a beard for this.
Shouldn't. Well, the hat and the T-shirt could be expected. I've never seen you. Have you ever had a beard?
A goatee, like back in the day, like 30 years ago.
But you've never had a beard?
Never.
How about your dad? Ever had a beard?
No, God, no.
You know,
I don't think I'm a beard guy.
You don't know until you try.
Yeah, I don't think Amy would like that too much. You know her pretty well, so beer's not happening in this house.
not quite.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of things to talk about. You know, if CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, if you don't know what that is, it's the biggest show in Las Vegas. They have it at the same place that NADA is every other year, the NADA Convention Center. But I mean, to contextualize it, NADA show is about 30,000 people. CES is about 100,000 people. So I'm just thinking the scale of this is massive, and it's across all technology, a number of people in automotive. Have you ever been there, Todd?
No, and I've always wanted to go. It's on my bucket list of things to do. I should have actually gone.
I think next year. Next year is the year, I think.
We
were talking about it too. We should. Who do we know that's there? Like David Kane is there right now.
Oh, is he?
He is. Oh, yeah. He went with his son, and he's posting pictures. So he's making us all jealous.
So next year, you bring Miles, I'll bring Anthony. We'll bring our sons, and we'll go.
There you go. We'll bring an iPhone and we'll just live report from it.
Yeah, it'd be a blast.
So CES is rolling heavy this year. And, you know, we had talked about a couple shows ago that it's so automotive heavy now that EVs are in the forefront. It really has pushed automotive culture back into the public technology culture and just culture in general. And so this year, I think automotive accounts for I think it's something crazy, like 15 or 20% of the show. 400,000 show floor square feet are accounted to the automotive industry alone. And so yesterday, you know, the announcements, the press releases, the live demos start to wrap up. So we're going to give you a little bit of a rundown on what happened yesterday. And then we'll hear Todd's, as usual, unfiltered feedback on all of it. So it kicked off. First one we're going to talk about is the Sony Honda Mobility joint venture between Sony and Honda. And they revealed what the brand is going to be for the joint venture in the car they're developing. It's called Afeela, AFFELA. There's a picture of it on the screen. It looks like a Porsche, kind of has like that fastback look of the Porsche. It kind of looks like a Lucid Air. It's got 45 cameras and sensors on both the interior and exterior. It's got a media bar in the front that actually can like communicate messages and colors and things like that. Best in class entertainment, they're saying. It's built on something that I want to look into a little more. Qualcomm's Snapdragon chassis, which is like supposed to solve the constant connectivity issue. And we'll do a quote here and then we'll talk about it. Yasuhide Mizuno, CEO of Sony Honda Mobility, said, Afeela represents our concept of an interactive relationship where people feel the sensation of intelligent mobility, and mobility can detect and understand the people and society by utilizing sensing and AI technologies. There you go. It'll be built in the U.S. Orders start in 2025 with delivery slated for the same year. What do you think of that car, Todd?
I think the car, it looks like one of those old yellow ugly Walkmans. Remember those old Sony Walkmans?
Oh, no.
Those big ugly things that you used to put on your hip or put on your... Oh my God, I think that car is like, these cars need personality. That car doesn't have it for me. But as a former dealer and someone who's definitely an advocate for dealers, you know, who's going to fix these cars? Who's going to sell them? Who's going to service them?
It's a question. They still haven't said. They still haven't said.
Yeah. So if I have a Honda franchise, I'm thinking, geez, okay, am I going to be delivering these cars? Am I going to be servicing them? Who's going to pay me? How am I going to get paid? It's very interesting that they're doing this with Sony for sure, but I think that car is just butt ugly, and it looks like it's going to be very expensive.
There you go, unfiltered. Let's move right on to the next one. If you like that one, you're going to love this. BMW, the Vision Dee, which is DEE, standing for Digital Emotional Experience. I would say it gives a nod to the hard lines of the older BMWs, think just real like boxy, but adds quite a few curves to kind of make it look sleek. It's pushing the boundaries of integrated tech, featuring, this is cool, a full windshield display. Obviously, these are concept cars, but basically users can slide between an no display or just a standard heads-up display, or an augmented reality display where it's going to show things across the windshield and overlay, maybe like directions, or a fully virtual experience where it's just a screen and you're not even looking at anything in the real world. Stephen Durock, their group senior vice president of the connected development, said, when integrating technology in the car, we think about the customer experience it creates and the problem we want to solve. We want to deliver the information you need right at the time you need it to give the perfect experience. That's what people are asking for. What do you think of that car?
They tell people don't text and drive. So now they want to put stuff up on a windshield for when you're driving the car. I don't get it. It looks like is it a living room on wheels?
No, it's smaller. It's smaller. I mean, it looks like a smaller BMW, but like I think a lot of these comments are like very generic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, think about it. Like, we want to give people tech that integrates with the life just when they need it. It's like, yeah.
Again,
isn't that the point of technology?
It's a concept, right? So we'll see what happens with that one. But, again, like that last car we looked at, people that are, higher levels of income that can afford some of these cars, they like cars with personality.
Yeah.
They like cars with some horsepower. And I think a lot of them just like simplicity too. They just want to kind of get in the car and go. So I hope that the automakers, they just don't lose sight of that. These are guys and gals that just kind of want to go fast and look cool. And I don't think either one of those cars look too cool to me. It's just my opinion anyways.
All right, let's move on to the next one. The VW newly named ID7. I think it was called the ID Aero at the concept. It has a fully lit exterior. Now, this is super concept. It literally has an LED screen on both the panels and the windows. This is just something that VW does at the CES shows. This is not, ever going to go into production. But this vehicle, the ID7, is supposed to be a Tesla Model 3 competitor straight on. It's got a full heads-up display, not full windshield, but all the way across the windshield, at least on the bottom, and a pretty big 15-inch touchscreen, smart climate control that heats and cools the cabin when it thinks the driver is heading toward the car. So when you get in the car, it's either heated or cooled. It kind of they made a big deal about the air vents and how they can direct and disperse air, but it reminds me just like of basically the interface looks like just what the Tesla Model 3 has already. And it has an expected range, which is the largest that they've announced in any of their lineup, of over 400 miles. Actually, I think it was like 450, but that's based on the European standard, which is a little more liberal. So we'll call it 400. But that definitely looks like, I don't know, a more normal car if you take away the LED panels.
If it's 40, 50 grand, it'll sell.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like a Passat-sized sedan.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. I think it'll sell. But the only other thing that I think of going in the future, right, is these cars are going to be so sophisticated and so complicated with all these electronics and LED lights and all these sensors and all these cameras. They're going to be very, very expensive to insure, right? Like, how is an insurance company going to value some of these cars if they get in an accident? And as a dealer or an independent repair shop or a body shop, you're going to have some serious tools that are probably expensive. Tech, tools, people to actually fix these cars. I mean, I've got a Tesla, right? And it's right now
a Model S, shop. Right?
Yeah, I got an S, and my son has a 3, and his car got backed into at a Chinese restaurant about 4 weeks ago. It's still sitting at a body shop in Charlotte. There was only 3 body shops in Charlotte that could actually fix it. And it's one of many Teslas sitting there, and they're the only ones that can fix it.
What's it waiting for? Just time?
Parts and honestly, just time and having someone actually able to work on it, because there's just so many of them sitting there. It's a big deal, right? If you own an electric car in one of these cars that are so tech heavy, it's going to be expensive to insure. And if you get, especially in an accident, I think you better be planning on waiting a long time to get the car back.
Wow,
until the industry catches up.
That's a massive consideration. I mean, even the cost, look, all these complicated windshields, how often windshields get chipped or cracked or something like that. And then, man, think of another complexity. What if the windshield gets chipped and it messes with the heads up display and all of a sudden it freaks out and you can't really see clearly out the windshield? It's a whole other level of safety issue.
The Model 3 we have, the roof got a chip in it and we had to replace the glass on the roof. Which
is like special polarized, argon. So what'd that do?
It was a project to get it done. I could not go through SafeLight. It had to be a specific vendor that specifically dealt with those only. And again, wasn't simple, wasn't easy, and it was an expense to the insurance company. And actually, I didn't even put it on the policy. I didn't bother claiming it. I just paid it out of my pocket because I didn't want to raise I don't want to raise my rates. But again, I love electric cars. I think they're great. and I think that the future looks bright for them. But unless it's affordable for everybody, it ain't gonna happen. It's just not.
Yep. All right, one last one. This is not a full vehicle, but Stellantis revealed their version of what they're calling the cockpit of the future, noting that Chrysler will be the first brand to integrate the new technology. Basically, it doesn't look comfortable to me, but the main feature is this 2-seat cabin that has dual touch screens that stretch from one side of the panel all the way across the other. Looks like it's about 6 to 8 inches tall, goes all the way across. And the software is just heavily focused on artificial intelligence, intended to alleviate a lot of the difficulties and stress associated with driving. Chrysler is saying they're also leaning into fun and wellness features, including meditation, DJ games, and get this, karaoke. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. Like, I think, CES is a lot of fanfare, right? And they want to say something that's going to get out there. But, Chrysler being the first brand to get the state-of-the-art, new display, I guess it makes sense, right? You get the volume. I don't know.
I think for passengers, it'll be fun. You know what just came to my mind, Paul? I feel like we're going through almost like a renaissance in the industry with the technology. If you look back at the cars, when cars first came out, in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, and how the technology just changed. Well, I think we're actually almost going through like a revolution now with cars, kind of like we went through literally 90 years ago. I mean, I'm into old cars, right? So I love cars. I truly love them, but I feel like there's definitely a huge shift and change coming with cars. There's no more turn signal. There's no more, levers coming off a steering wheel. It's constant buttons everywhere. And again, I think it's awesome, but my only concern is like this stuff distracts people. Screens can definitely be really, really, really distracting. I think moving a lever to make a lane change is one thing, but having to actually look at a screen and touch and swipe and something like that as a driver, I think that's just, again, right? Like you got to think about this stuff. People that design things, I know they drive cars, but a lot of times people that design things and work for these large corporations, they almost live in a cubicle or a place where they don't necessarily think about what happens in the real world to someone who's just driving their kids back and forth to school or to a game or something like that. And that's the real consumer. It's a disconnect. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, because it feels like a little bit of the antidote to what you're saying could be a lot of these autonomous features, or at least driver assist features and safety features that maybe counteract some of the distraction that happens, or at least the change in, the change in comfort level with, maybe pulling a lever versus looking to the right. And so, I mean, I can't tell you how many times my, semi-autonomous features have saved me from a collision or maybe changing a lane the wrong way. Totally. And so, I wish I would have included this story, because I found this great video of a Tesla rider in Detroit driving their Tesla in the snow on autopilot, and it could make it like 3 feet without going into the curb. It's just like, and he's like, anyone that tells you full autonomy is coming, he's like, even in perfect conditions, right, there are a lot of questions. But even in inclement weather, like, you and I are used to being from, or having lived in upstate New York for a long time. Not even close. All right. Speaking of not even close.
Stop. Segue.
Time. Got to get a segue in. So Amazon has made 2 large announcements this week. One is that they're laying off 18,000 people, which is more than 10,000 that they had originally expected in November. And the other one, which was just at the end of the day yesterday, is that they are securing an $8 billion unsecured credit line for the next year, with an option to extend it another year. So let's break those 2 down. The layoffs are something that we had been talking to and looking at. Amazon literally doubled the size of their company since the pandemic started, right? During the pandemic, online sales skyrocketed. People were stuck at home. They added hundreds of thousands of workers. So they're laying off 18,000, which actually represents 1.1% of their workforce. And they said it's going to be pretty broad across the entire company, right? Like, they're not just doing C-suite. They're not just doing warehouse. They said it's pretty broad, just labor reduction. Now, you pair that with the fact that they're taking out this $8 billion term loan, which, by the way, that's a lot of interest, right? 400 million interest in a year at 5%, but they're doing this And the quote was, given the uncertain macroeconomic environment over the last few months, we have used different financing options to support capital expenditures, debt repayments, acquisitions, and working capital needs. So that's what they're saying it's for. In Q3, they had $35 billion in cash with $59 billion in long-term debt. We don't know what that is at the moment. So what do you make of that dichotomy? Laying people off, borrowing cash for Amazon.
So some of this I would say is probably above my pay grade, but you know me, I just like to simplify things.
Yep.
If you're looking at this from a business owner's perspective, this is the year to really start focusing on expenses because a lot of people in the auto industry have been really fat and happy. And you have to look at every single thing that you pay for, every single person that you have, all of your processes. And I would think Amazon, along with a lot of other companies, are doing the exact same thing. We've been reading about layoffs now for the last 3, 4, 5 months.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see what happens with a lot of these corporate layoffs that we've seen, whether or not these people get rehired and how quickly they actually get rehired and who picks them up. If they don't, you're probably going to see the unemployment rate tick up. And then maybe what will happen is, we might see interest rates start to not continue to go higher because I think what the government wants to see. Yeah, the government's so concerned that the employment market's so hot, which to me doesn't make any sense to me. I'd like to see everybody employed. Yep. It doesn't make any sense to me. We want to have such low employment or unemployment, but I just here again, we look at the basic fundamentals of businesses. You have to generate cash flow. You have to generate profit. And when we're in a world right now where it's not all about top line revenue anymore because the cost of capital is not nearly as inexpensive as it used to be. And the focus is not just on growth. The focus in the investment community is really looking at companies that actually make a good return on investment at all. I mean, we see it with other people in the car industry, especially some of the online car dealers and what's happened to them, and their market cap has been destroyed because the investment community is really not focusing on the sizzle anymore and the top line revenue growth. They're focusing on whether or not these companies can actually make money.
I think that's kind of the dichotomy of the auto industry right now. Like even in the things that we talked about this morning, right? There's a lot of sizzle going on. There's a lot of EV talk. There's a lot of technology talk, but the undertone that you hear amongst dealers who are really paying attention in the industry at large from an operations standpoint is it's very expense driven now. Like all of a sudden we're back to where we were in 2019, 2020 hits and then this whole thing happens. But what happens when things are uncertain? What do you look at? You look at expenses.
You look at expenses, right? For sure. Like everything happens in cycles, right? Business happens in cycles. And I think we're coming into another one now, and the government's printed money for a long time, a lot of it, and I think some of it's coming back to roost, and those who operate their businesses fundamentally correctly will be fine, and there's definitely opportunities for those that are sharp. But if you've been sloppy, no matter what the business is that you're in, I think this year is going to be a wake-up call for people.
Well, there you have it. I think that's enough for a Thursday. People have some work to do. They have some expenses to cut, technology to pay attention, but more than all of that, we know that this industry revolves around one thing, and that is serving other people.